Remember when Jesus declined to heal the blind because he didn't want to reinforce systemic ableism? Hey everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Little and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillLittle.com. And I got to tell you, folks, it killed me to deadpan that intro, but I am dead serious about this. If you haven't seen the Mr. Beast video, you're about the last person in the world not to see this thing. It's been viewed 106 million times already just on YouTube, and it's just people who have been returned the gift of sight through this simple operation. They're seeing again for the first time in years and years. Some of them are kids who have grown up basically without being able. And if you get 30 seconds into this video before the internet transmissible onion fumes get into your eyes, you may be born without a soul. All I can say is it's absolutely beautiful. I'm sure you've seen it already. If not, you can watch it after you've watched all the right angles. However, there's always got to be one turd in the punch bowl, and in this case, gentlemen, it's Stephen Aquino. I'm not sure in TechCrunch, who writes that the biggest problem with wanting to cure his scare quotes blindness is that it reinforces a moral superiority of sorts by those without disabilities over those who are disabled. Although not confronted nearly as often as racism and sexism, systemic ableism is pervasive through all parts of society, and it's bad for people who want to see disabilities eradicated, cured. Even more problematical is that the video, Scott, is really about able people feeling good about themselves. How do you react to that? How do you talk to somebody?
That evil, yeah.
Well, first of all, if you watch the video, the most striking thing to me was after these people who, and the kind of blindness we're talking about basically makes it impossible for you to distinguish features of things. You can't read anything, you can't drive. It's not like it's just darkness, but it's just everything is so fuzzy that you're non-functional. Yeah. And so anyway, but after those people had the gauze taken off their eyes and they were able to read things and see the faces of their loved ones clearly for the first times in their lives, I remember just seeing that look of shame wash over their faces, their embarrassment of how they cowered from their disability when they should have embraced it. And, you know, like this is just... I did not know what you had in store for us. Steve let us preview the video beforehand, but he didn't tell us what the reaction to it was going to be. And I am sitting there watching this count down or count up 1,000 people who have benefited from getting their eyesight back or restored or given to them really for the first time in their lives, because of the unbelievable gobs of money that this Mr. Beast YouTube character guy, influencer, has been able to generate by doing wild and crazy things on YouTube. And not only is he healing their sight, but in many cases he's handing them money. He sends kids to college. He's like doing all this great stuff for people. And I'm watching this and thinking, okay, I know Steve wouldn't have just given this to us because everything is roses and lollipops, and that somebody would think, I mean, whoever wrote this Stephen Aquino guy has not lived a day with a disability, apparently. Either that or he has, and he has utterly given up.
Yeah, let me jump in on this. He does have disabilities, several, he writes in this fairly long TechCrunch article, due to premature birth. And my heart would go out to him, does go out to him. But what's happened, I think, Scott, to his soul is a lot worse than anything that happened to his body to write this piece.
Well, and it's kind of like my old crabs in a bucket analogy. I mean, it's just because if one crab tries to get out of the bucket, if you figure like, well, I'm stuck in the bottom of this bucket, I'm not gonna let any other crab get out, and you reach up with your little claw and pull them back down into the bucket, you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not doing the other crab any favors. And so just dragging people down who have finally had a chance. And I'm sure if whatever afflicts Mr. Aquino had some sort of cure available and he could access that, I don't think he would say, no, never mind. It's not right for me to do that. I think he would embrace it, as he should. And I feel sorry for him that these conditions have left him in such bitterness that he can't find the joy in it. But I hope everybody watches this video and just sees the faces of these people who are getting to do something they never thought they'd be able to do. And then the striking thing for me, Steve, in the video was to hear that about half of the world's cases of blindness can be fixed by a 10-minute surgery.
10-minute surgery.
Yeah, that's a remarkable part. And when you watch that video, all of us live in the world of news and politics, and almost all of it is awful or stupid or both. And to see 8 or 10 minutes, whatever it is, of nothing but joy, that's not about us feeling superior. That is about people sharing their newfound joy. And that's there. I don't think there's anything more beautiful than that. Bill, you'll be happy to know that Mr. Aquino has morally absolved those for their sins of being able to see again. He writes,
thank God for that.
Yes. However problematic Mr. B's premise in producing the video, the people who participated, the patients and their doctors, should not be vilified. Oh,
no, just the guy who made it possible.
Yeah. They made the decision to go through with the surgery of their own volition. Crazy as that was, the reasoning behind making that choice goes far beyond the scope of this article. Why do you think that's beyond the scope of this really mean-spirited article?
Well, one thing I've learned in the last 5 or 8 years or something like that is anytime you're reading something and you encounter the word problematic, just stop reading there and chuck it on, move to the next thing. If somebody employs the word problematic in a serious way, then you know you're dealing with one of these evil, woke lunatics. There's a lot to unpack here, and so I'll make this as fast as I can. The first thought I had is that it's very common for the left to look at people in the third world, or people, just generally poor people, but I'm talking about world poor people, real poor people, not like what we have here. And what I've seen from them is that they tend to look at them as some kind of human reservation, right? Like, we can't touch these people. And when you got people who are living in thatched huts in the mud, wearing banana leaves for clothes, and then all of a sudden they're wearing a cotton T-shirt and cotton shorts or something, the left will bemoan this and wail about how they've been contaminated. And the reason they do that is because they don't have to wear banana leaves for clothes, because cotton shorts are much more comfortable than banana leaves for clothes. And so what they want is they want primitive people to stay on the reservation. They want them to stay in this human game preserve so that they can exert their moral superiority to make sure that they're not contaminated by the kind of progress that they live with every day. This is a form of virtue signaling, which brings me to my second point. I suspect what's driving this for him emotionally is not. Part of it might be a combination of jealousy, because you say he has a number of disabilities, right? So part of it may be, hey, how come their disability's being fixed and mine isn't? But I suspect it's actually simpler than that. I believe he is against this, Steve, because he realizes that if you do that, you're losing victim points. Right? You're lowering your social value according to left-wing standards. If you're blind, you get victim points. And if you're blind and then suddenly, cooperate with the patriarchy and the white supremacy, and now you can see again, not only do you not have victim points anymore, but you've reinforced the case that somehow Western people know how to do things better than other people. Well, here's a shock for you. They do. Right? I don't know if these doctors are Americans, or I don't care. I don't know what color they are, and I don't care. But I do bet you anything they're Western doctors using Western medicine, and it's yet another repudiation of this worship of the primitive that the left is completely married to. And parenthetically, this whole story reminds me about a line from Zach Galifianakis in Between Two Ferns. They're talking about. Brad Pitt's talking about some of the charities that he contributes, and Zach Galifianakis says, I contribute to charity too. I put a lot of money into doctors without licenses. And I just thought that was rather good. But ultimately, it's mean-spirited, which doesn't surprise me from the left. It's virtue signaling, which doesn't surprise me from the left.
Yeah.
And it is And it is more than anything trying to create a sense of injustice when there is not only not injustice, there is actual genuine good being done, but it's being done by Western males, so therefore it's got to be destroyed. And I'm sure once the people whose vision have been restored realize that they're playing into the hands of the patriarchy, like you said, I'm sure they'll put those cataracts right back in there. And once they realize the error of their ways, these are horrible people, Steve. These people like the Sequoia, they're just horrible people. Horrible people.
Steve,
that's why they're leftists.
Steve, can I just throw in one thing?
Please.
Because I do think, just by the fact that we're talking about this, which we need to talk about, we may miss the fact that, like, the real story here is 1,000 people can see who couldn't previously see, and people who are in real poor circumstances are being enabled to keep their jobs and go to college. And then at the end of the video, Mr. Beast, who's this guy again, the YouTube guy, gives $100,000 to the Eye Doctors Foundation, and the Eye Doctor says, we're going to be able to make a lot of people see with this. That's the beautiful
I watched
story.
this and I choked up, and now you're telling me the thing that I watched, and I'm getting choked up again because it's that beautiful.
That's what Aquino hates about it. It's a private individual who's using his own money to do good in the world. It's not being done by a government. It's not being done by an NGO. It's not being done by the United Nations. That's what pisses him off, right? Is a guy has made some money, and he's using his money to do good in the world, and he can't stand the fact that it's not some government program that that is controlled by left-wing philosophy and ideology. It drives him out of his mind.
Yeah, and we've seen this kind of thing before. It's somehow, for leftists, for progressives, it's wonderful when the government gives somebody money to help them. But when the little old lady down the street breaks her hip and the neighborhood gathers together to cook her food and to help her take care of herself, that's so awful. Why wasn't there a government program to help her?
So we better make it illegal going forward.
Yeah, when a community has come together to actually help somebody in a very personal and touching way. Bill and Scott, you guys just nailed it on this. One of my best friends in high school was pretty much an actual communist, and I've always been the sort of conservative libertarian Goldwater type, and all we did was argue. We just argued, debated day and night. That was just the hardcore basis of our friendship, and it was a lot of fun, and you get to sharpen your arguments and dig up the facts, and so you really get in there with him. When it comes to stuff like this, like this article about systemic ableism, I'm done arguing. I'm done engaging. There's no argument to be made. This is the last time I'm going to personally address anybody making these arguments and try to counter them, because it's a waste of time. But don't think I'm the bad guy here for closing the door on these misanthropes, because I'm not. TechCrunch disabled the comments on this article because they didn't want to engage either, because they knew what they published was just evil and wrong. And that's your Right Angle on That, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.